The metallic clang of the prison gates echoed in Jermaine Carter's chest as he carried the box of toys through the parking lot. Each step felt heavier than the last, not because of the weight, but because of the stairs. Fathers rarely came here, but Jermaine did every month. The children inside deserved moments of joy, even if only for an hour. A tall officer in a crisp uniform stepped out of the security booth, his boots scuffing the asphalt like a warning drum. "Hey, what's in the box?" The word carried suspicion, a subtle sneer underneath the clipped command. Jermaine froze, the paper-cut edges of the shipping label digging into his fingers. "Just toys," he said, voice steady but thin, aware of every eye on them. The officer laughed, a hollow, mocking sound that twisted in Jermaine's gut. "Toys? For inmates' kids? Don't think I've seen a black man play Santa around here." His eyes flicked up and down, measuring, judging. "Why don't you just go home?" Jermaine's throat tightened. He wanted to explain, to speak, but the words caught like stones. The surrounding fathers shifted uneasily, none daring to intervene. "I said move along." The officer snapped, stepping closer. Jermaine lifted his chin. "I'm allowed to deliver these. It's my responsibility. These children." The officer's voice cut him off, sharp as a whip. "Responsibility? Don't pretend you belong here." A bead of sweat traced Jermaine's temple. Behind him, the gate swung slowly shut with metallic finality. And as the officer reached for the box, a shiver ran down Jermaine's spine. This was no simple confrontation. It was a warning, and he knew the worst was just beginning. Jermaine Carter's hands trembled slightly as he lifted the box, the weight of it nothing compared to the heaviness in his chest. Every month, he made the same pilgrimage to the state correctional facility, a gray, monolithic structure that seemed to absorb hope like a sponge. Inside, children waited. Children who never asked for much, but whose eyes brightened when a simple gift arrived. The parking lot was slick from last night's rain, the asphalt reflecting the harsh glare of the security lights. Jermaine's steps echoed with each footfall, a drumbeat in the still morning air. Fathers clustered in small groups, their voices low, wary. Few made eye contact. The prison's shadow felt like it swallowed their presence whole. From the security booth, a uniformed figure emerged, boots scraping the ground in sharp, deliberate sounds. Officer Thompson's gaze landed on Jermaine as though sizing a piece of furniture. "Hey, you!" he barked, voice slicing through the murmurs. "What's in the box?" Jermaine forced calm. "Just toys for the children of inmates." The officer smirked, leaning slightly closer. "Children, huh? Never seen a black man carrying toys around here before. You sure this isn't personal business?" Heat surged in Jermaine's face. His fingers dug into the cardboard. "It's my responsibility. These children." "Responsibility?" Thompson's tone sharpened. "Don't act like you belong here." Around them, other fathers shifted uncomfortably. No one intervened. Some glanced away. Others whispered to each other, powerless in the face of authority. Jermaine's chest tightened. He wanted to speak, to explain, but words trapped in his throat like stones. "I said, move along," Thompson repeated, stepping closer, boots thudding with intimidation. Jermaine raised the box slightly, voice measured but firm. "I have permission. The children need these gifts." Thompson's eyes narrowed. "Permission? From who?" "Not me. Not while I'm here." The tension twisted into something tangible, heavy, and oppressive. Jermaine felt the past months of subtle biases and overt dismissals coalesce in this moment. Every microaggression, every glance that said he didn't belong, every assumption of criminality, it all converged at the tip of Thompson's sneer. Jermaine swallowed, steadying himself. "I deliver every month. I do this because someone has to care. These kids deserve." The officer's hand shot forward, fingers brushing the box as if to assert ownership. "You think you can just waltz in here?" A hush fell over the lot. The sounds of distant machinery, the faint cry of a child somewhere behind the walls, mingled with Jermaine's quickening heartbeat. "Sir, you have no right." Jermaine began, but Thompson cut him off with a laugh, cruel and hollow. "Right?" He spat the word. "This isn't a playground. Go home." Jermaine's eyes burned. "Go home? For what?" For daring to care? For existing in a space designed to remind him of where he didn't belong? He inhaled sharply, gripping the box. Not without these toys, Jermaine said, voice low but unwavering. They're waiting. The officer's expression darkened. He glanced around, as if testing the lot for support, finding none. Then, with a slow, deliberate motion, he reached again for the box. The metal gate behind Jermaine creaked as it swung slightly, a sound that promised finality. Jermaine froze. For a heartbeat, the world contracted to the space between them. The box, the officer's hand, the rain-slick asphalt, the eyes of silent witnesses. And then, almost imperceptibly, Thompson smiled. Not a friendly smile, but one that tasted of warning. You'll regret this, he murmured, voice tight, a knife hidden in civility. Jermaine's fingers tightened around the cardboard. The moment stretched, taut and unyielding. A shiver ran down his spine, not from cold, but from a realization. This confrontation was only the beginning. He took a slow step forward, heart hammering, and the lot seemed to hold its breath. Behind him, the gate swung slowly, ominously, and as the officer's shadow fell over the box, Jermaine understood one truth. Power was meant to intimidate, but courage was meant to endure. The gray clouds hung low over the prison lot as Jermaine walked away, the box of toys still clutched in his hands. The rain had stopped, but the air carried a damp heaviness that pressed on his chest, mirroring the tension in his mind. Fathers lingered near their vehicles, exchanging murmured words, glances darting toward the booth where Officer Thompson stood. Some nodded subtly at Jermaine, most looked away. The unspoken message was clear: interfere at your own peril. Jermaine's partner, Marcus, had warned him about today. Don't let them get inside your head. Marcus had said, gripping Jermaine's shoulder firmly. Just deliver the gifts and move on. But walking away didn't erase the sting. It didn't undo the humiliation, the whispered judgment, the assumption that he was here for reasons other than care. A group of men clustered near the lot's edge, speaking quietly but audible enough to catch Jermaine's attention. That's Thompson for you, one said. Always picking on the wrong guy. Thinks he owns the place. Jermaine's lips pressed together. He wanted to respond, to assert the dignity of his mission, but he only nodded politely and kept walking. The words wouldn't change anything yet. By the time he reached his car, the officer was speaking with a colleague, Thompson's voice carrying that thin layer of superiority that cut like glass. Did you see him? Thompson asked, trying to look like a hero, delivering gifts. Classic. Thinks a little charity makes him untouchable. I don't buy it. His colleague chuckled. I'd keep an eye on him. Doesn't belong in that lot. Jermaine leaned against his car, breathing slowly, letting the box rest against the hood. The children inside would be waiting. Each letter, each drawing, each small thank you note he had received over the years reminded him of why he came, why he endured the glare, the sneers, the assumptions. He reached into the box, fingers brushing a small toy truck. He could almost imagine the smile of a child when they opened it. That smile, bright, unburdened, unaware of prejudice, was worth every insult, every challenge. Marcus's voice crackled over the phone. You okay? Jermaine nodded, even though Marcus couldn't see him. Yeah, just tired, frustrated, but okay. You don't have to prove anything to them, Marcus said. You do this because it matters, not because of their opinion. Jermaine let the words sink in, grounding him. Yet even as he spoke with Marcus, the image of Thompson's sneer lingered in his mind. The officer's words had power not only because of his uniform, but because of the system that silently condoned his behavior. Every unchecked authority, every whispered bias, reinforced inequality that Jermaine battled daily. Driving home, Jermaine replayed the encounter, analyzing it in minute detail. He imagined what he could have said, how he could have held the officer accountable without escalating. Each scenario ended the same. Thompson, emboldened, refusing to acknowledge decency, dismissing morality for authority. When Jermaine arrived at his apartment, he set the box down carefully on the counter. The toys would wait until next week, when he could coordinate with the prison's child services office to ensure delivery. The apartment smelled of brewing coffee, and the faint scent of Marcus's cologne. Jermaine's heart lifted slightly at the familiarity. The sanctuary of home. "You look like hell," Marcus said, already holding a mug, his expression softening as he saw the tension etched across Jermaine's face. Jermaine managed a wry smile. "They tried to stop me." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "Who?" "Thompson. Officer Thompson. Acts like the lot belongs to him. Like I'm some kind of intruder. Said I didn't belong." Marcus set the mug down and walked over, resting a hand on Jermaine's shoulder. "You belong where you care. Jermaine." That's more than he'll ever understand. Jermaine exhaled slowly. "I know, but every month it wears you down. You fight the small battles, but the system doesn't care. And he's part of the system." Marcus squeezed his shoulder. "Then fight smart. Use your voice, your organization, your network, not brute force. You've done more for those kids in 1 year than that guy will in a lifetime." Jermaine nodded, heart pounding. The words helped, but they couldn't erase the humiliation he had endured, the sharp sting of being judged on skin rather than purpose. Later, Jermaine sat at the kitchen table, letters from the children spread before him. Each page carried messy handwriting, crude drawings, and messages filled with gratitude. "Thank you for the toys. I can't wait to see you again. You make me feel happy." He traced the edges with his fingers, reading aloud softly. "We're going to make it, Jermaine," he whispered, more to himself in the letters. "We're going to make it." His phone buzzed again. Another update from the prison social worker. A child was sick, waiting for a special toy to lift spirits. Jermaine felt the familiar tug of responsibility. The encounter with Thompson was not the end. It was an obstacle, one he had to navigate with patience, resilience, and strategy. Outside, the city lights blurred in the rainy night. Jermaine understood something essential, the power of small actions in the face of systemic oppression. The officer had tried to humiliate him, to assert dominance, but the true measure of influence wasn't in threats. It was in the care and the quiet, relentless service to those who needed it most. Tomorrow, he would return. The toys would reach the children, no matter the obstacle. And the officers who sought to intimidate him would see that courage, consistency, and integrity were stronger than fear. For Jermaine, it wasn't about defeating Thompson in a single encounter. It was about building a legacy of care that no prejudice could dismantle. The apartment was quiet, the kind of silence that carried both comfort and weight. Jermaine sat at the small wooden table by the window, the letters and drawings from the children spread in front of him. Their bright colors and uneven scrawls contrasted sharply with the gray world outside, a city of steel, asphalt, and bureaucracy that rarely acknowledged their existence. He picked up a letter, edges fraying, words wobbly but earnest. "Thank you for the toys. I can't wait to see you again. You make me feel happy." Jermaine's fingers lingered over the words. He closed his eyes, thinking of his own brother Malcolm, now serving a 10-year sentence for a nonviolent offense. Jermaine had spent countless nights sitting beside him, filling the silence with stories, laughter, hope. When Malcolm was sent away, Jermaine had vowed to care for children like his brothers, children who grew up in the shadow of prison walls, uncertain and overlooked. A soft knock on the door pulled him from his thoughts. Marcus entered, carrying groceries, the smell of fresh bread and roasted chicken filling the room. "You've been quiet," Marcus said, setting the bags down. "More than usual." Jermaine managed a faint smile. "Just thinking about today and everything." Marcus leaned against the counter, arms crossed. "I know Thompson got under your skin, but you're not alone. These kids, they're lucky to have you. And so am I." Jermaine exhaled, rubbing his temples. "It's just, every time I go there, I feel like I'm fighting more than just one person. The system itself is against us. It's not just him. It's the rules, the hierarchy, the assumptions baked into every corner of that place." Marcus's voice softened. "And yet you go back. Every month. Why?" Jermaine paused, tracing the outline of a toy truck in one of the letters. "Because someone has to. Someone has to care. Someone has to show them that they're not invisible, that someone believes in them, even when the world doesn't." Marcus nodded, understanding the weight Jermaine carried. And you do more than most would even dream of. They fell into silence for a moment. Jermaine stared out the window at the city lights reflecting off the wet streets, remembering each time a child's face lit up, the sound of their laughter echoing in the hallways, momentary escapes from the harsh reality of prison life. Each encounter was a reminder of why he endured the subtle humiliation, the dismissals, the sneers. The room felt smaller. Suddenly, the letters in front of him heavier. He thought about the children who depended on him, who counted on his consistency. Each toy, each note, was more than a gift. It was proof that care could persist even in places built to strip it away. He picked up another letter, written in shaky handwriting. You make me happy. I hope you can come again soon. Don't let anyone stop you. Jermaine's heart tightened. He imagined the officer's sneer, the dismissive words, and yet he felt an odd warmth. The children's words fortified him, made him resilient. They were the reason he continued, the reason he refused to back down. A knock came again, more insistent this time. Jermaine rose to answer, opening the door to find one of his community volunteers, Lisa, holding a folder. Jermaine, you got a call from the prison social worker. There's an urgent case. They need you to deliver some items immediately. He took the folder, flipping through notes detailing a child with medical need, waiting for a specific toy to keep spirits up during treatment. His chest tightened, not from fear, but responsibility. He had promised these children that he would be there, and now one of them needed him more than ever. Marcus placed a hand on his shoulder. You okay? Jermaine nodded, voice firm. Yeah, we'll make it work. Lisa raised an eyebrow. And the officer? Jermaine sighed, the weight of Thompson's glare still fresh. He won't stop me. Not really. Not when I'm here for the kids. But we need to be smart. Methodical. Every interaction counts. Marcus stepped back, concern etched on his face. Just be careful. I know you're strong, but don't let them wear you down. Jermaine gave a small smile, a mixture of fatigue and determination. They won't. Not me, not the kids. Alone later that night, Jermaine sat at the table, reviewing the letters again. Each one reminded him of why he fought, why he persevered in a system designed to diminish hope. He thought about Malcolm, about the children he had yet to meet, about every father and mother who had tried to make a difference but had been silenced or ignored. He traced the scribbled words on a letter. Don't let anyone stop you. The phrase echoed in his mind. It became a mantra, a shield against the bitterness and humiliation he had endured today. For every sneer there was a smile, for every dismissal a note, for every officer like Thompson, a child who believed he cared. Jermaine rose, setting the letters carefully aside. Tomorrow, he would return to the prison. He would navigate the bureaucracy, the bias, the intimidation, not for vengeance, but for care, for hope, because someone had to be consistent. Someone had to endure. And Jermaine Carter, no matter the cost, had already committed himself to that mission. He glanced once more at the folder from Lisa. The urgent case awaited, and he felt that familiar tug, a responsibility that went beyond himself. He knew the confrontation with Thompson wasn't over. It would escalate, as all injustices do. But for now, he had clarity. Courage wasn't the absence of fear. It was acting in spite of it. Tonight, he would rest. Tomorrow, he would continue the work that mattered. And no uniform, no badge, no sneer would stop him from delivering hope to those who needed it most. Officer Thompson's office smelled of stale coffee and disinfectant, a mix that somehow felt like authority. He leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled, eyes scanning the report stacked neatly on his desk. The box incident earlier that morning replayed in his mind, not as an embarrassment, but as a confirmation of his power, or so he believed. Thompson, said Officer Reynolds, entering with a clipboard in hand. You got another complaint. Visitor interference. Something about toys for inmates' kids. Thompson waved a hand dismissively. Typical. These people think they can waltz in and do whatever they want. It's my job to remind them who's in charge. Reynolds glanced at him carefully. You made him leave? Of course. Didn't I? Thompson leaned forward, voice sharp. The guy was trying to play hero in my lot. Black man carrying toys like he owns the place. I had to set him straight. Can't let people assume the rules don't apply to them. Reynolds raised an eyebrow, uncertain. You think you might have overstepped? Thompson laughed. The sound harsh and brittle. Overstepped? No. I reinforced order. That's my job. These people, they don't respect boundaries unless you make them. As Reynolds left, Thompson's gaze fell on the photographs pinned to the wall. Graduation photos. Family snapshots. A glimpse into a life outside a uniform. Yet the man in the mirror reflected something else entirely. A man whose authority had been shaped by bias, upbringing, and a system that rarely questioned him. His mother's words echoed faintly in his memory. You have to be twice as good, son, because the world will judge you twice as harshly. The advice, meant to encourage, had twisted over the years, hardening into a belief that others' lives would be measured and controlled by his judgment. The radio crackled with activity. Officers reporting routine security updates. Thompson sipped his coffee, mind wandering to the incident. The man, the father, Jermaine, had been calm, almost daring in his composure. It unnerved Thompson. He was used to compliance, fear, hesitation, not the quiet defiance he had seen today. He tapped a pen against his desk, frustration building. Who does he think he is? He muttered under his breath. Delivering toys like some saint, while undermining authority. I can't let that go unnoticed. The day wore on. Thompson patrolled a lot, eyes scanning for infractions, for signs of disobedience, for opportunities to assert dominance. Every movement, every interaction, reinforced his perception of control. Yet beneath it, a flicker of unease persisted, a realization that his actions could be questioned, that whispers of misconduct could erode his authority if he wasn't careful. Later, in the break room, Thompson spoke with colleagues. You know what I saw today? That guy, Carter, trying to deliver toys, smiling like he's some kind of hero, acting like he belongs here. A junior officer nodded. Yeah, I saw it too. He doesn't act like most visitors. Doesn't back down. Exactly, Thompson said, leaning on the counter. And that's the problem. Authority is about control. If people start thinking rules don't apply to them, then the whole system falls apart. Another officer added quietly, almost as an afterthought, you might be a little heavy-handed, though. Thompson's eyes narrowed. Heavy-handed? No, I'm enforcing boundaries. That's my job. The second we let someone assume they're untouchable, we lose order. And trust me, I know what this order looks like. He thought of his father's harsh discipline, of the stories his grandfather would fought in the military, of lessons that equated respect with obedience. These memories shaped every action, every instinct, every assumption he made about those around him. By late afternoon, Thompson's office was quiet again. He reviewed his notes on Jermaine Carter, the visitor who defied him, who had remained composed despite intimidation. There was something unsettling about the man's resolve, something that hinted at networks, strategies, and a persistence Thompson had rarely encountered. He scrawled a note. Monitor. Don't underestimate. The rest of the day passed in a haze of routine, but Thompson could not shake the encounter. Every reflection in the polished surfaces of the office reminded him of the father in the parking lot, the box of toys, the quiet defiance that challenged not only his authority, but his worldview. Thompson believed he upheld justice, that he maintained order. Yet, in moments of solitude, the seed of doubt crept in, not doubt of his power, but the righteousness of its application. For the first time, he wondered if authority alone was enough to define morality, or perhaps the line between enforcement and oppression was thinner than he had been taught to believe. And though he would never admit it aloud, the name Jermaine Carter lingered in his mind. A quiet reminder that control could be challenged, that courage could exist even in the face of intimidation, and that the world did not always bend to those in uniform. As night fell, Thompson stared at the ceiling, coffee cold in his mug. He was in his world, shaped by hierarchy and rules, yet already aware that not every challenge would bow to his authority. And somewhere, buried beneath the routine, a new tension had begun to take root, a prelude to confrontation, a test of how power would be wielded and resisted in the days ahead. The morning air was crisp sharp, biting at Jermaine's cheeks as he pulled into the prison parking lot. The sky was overcast, heavy with clouds that threatened rain, mirroring the tension tightening his chest. The box of toys sat in the passenger seat, neatly organized and labeled, ready for delivery. Every detail mattered. Every precaution, every document, every smile meant to soften the harsh reality of the institution. Jermaine took a deep breath, gripping the steering wheel. Today would be different. He had anticipated Thompson's resistance, rehearsed his words, reviewed the permissions and letters. Strategy mattered as much as courage. As he approached the lot, Officer Thompson emerged from the booth, boots scuffing the asphalt with deliberate authority. He leaned on the railing, arms crossed, a thin smile of anticipation on his face. "Back again, huh?" Thompson said, voice carrying across the lot. "You must really enjoy humiliating yourself." Jermaine's jaw tightened, but he stepped out of the car calmly. "I'm here to deliver these. The children are expecting them. That's all." Thompson laughed, a dry, mocking sound. "Expecting them? You think your little gifts change anything? You don't belong here, Carter." Jermaine held the box firmly. "I have authorization. These children, they're waiting for someone else?" Thompson interrupted. "Don't kid yourself. Authority here isn't about feelings. It's about rules. And rules say I control access." A small group of visitors had gathered, sensing the tension. Some watched warily from behind their cars. Others whispered softly, glancing at Jermaine with curiosity or quiet support. The lot felt like a stage, each figure a witness to the unfolding struggle. Jermaine inhaled slowly. "I respect the rules, Officer Thompson, but I also respect the lives of these children. They don't need your judgment, they need care." Thompson's eyes narrowed. "You think words protect you? They don't. This is my lot, my rules. And you will deliver these toys," Jermaine interrupted, calm but unwavering, "because they need them. That's the difference between us. I act for others. You act for yourself." The officer's smirk faltered slightly, the first crack in his unyielding facade. He stepped closer, hands on his hips. "You think you can lecture me? You think morality grants you passage?" Jermaine's gaze didn't waver. "Morality is about doing what's right, not who can intimidate better. And today, what's right is delivering these gifts." The tension coiled tight, a silent wire between them. Thompson reached out, inspecting Jermaine's paperwork. He scanned the authorization, frowning. "Looks legitimate. But let's see if the procedure matches the rules. Step aside while I verify." Jermaine complied, stepping back but keeping the box in sight. Every second mattered, every breath measured. Around them, the lot hummed with subtle reactions, whispered encouragements, averted eyes, the hum of distant machinery. As Thompson made his calls, Jermaine observed him carefully. Authority wasn't inherently corrupt, but wielded without reflection, it became oppressive. Thompson believed he was enforcing order, yet every gesture, every word, reflected personal prejudice as much as institutional rule. After a tense pause, Thompson motioned reluctantly. "Fine, deliver them, but follow procedure exactly. One misstep, Carter, and it's on you." Jermaine nodded, relief flickering briefly. "Thank you. I will." Inside the prison, hallways smelled of bleach and muted despair. Jermaine moved deliberately, box held securely, passing guards who offered polite nods, but no more. Each step was familiar, yet each delivery carried the weight of scrutiny. Children's laughter echoed faintly from a distant wing, a soft reminder of why he persisted. He arrived at the Child Services office, greeted by Lisa and a social worker named Carmen. "They've been waiting," Carmen said softly. "The kids are in the rec room. Just follow protocol. Jermaine, you know the drill." Jermaine nodded, carrying the box toward the door. Each toy inside was carefully wrapped, labeled with the child's name and preferences. This wasn't just charity. It was dignity, attention, care for lives often overlooked. As he entered the room, small faces lit up immediately. "Mr. Carter!" a girl exclaimed, jumping from a chair. Another boy waved frantically, holding a scribbled drawing. Jermaine's heart swelled, fatigue and tension momentarily forgotten. "Here we go," he said, kneeling to distribute the toys. Each child received attention, each smile a tiny victory. The room buzzed with quiet joy, laughter, and whispered thanks. Then came the distant but unmistakable sound of boots. Thompson appeared in the doorway, arms crossed, surveying the scene. His eyes flicked from Jermaine to the children, the social workers, back to Jermaine. "You again," Thompson said, voice low but cutting. "I thought I told you that I'd follow procedure." Jermaine interjected calmly. "And I did. I delivered the toys. The children have them. That's the procedure you demanded." Thompson's jaw tightened. The children didn't notice, too absorbed in their gifts. Yet for Jermaine, this was a small triumph, a reminder that order and force with bias could be navigated, challenged, and sometimes quietly undone. "Consider this a warning," Thompson muttered, retreating to the doorway. "Next time, I won't be so lenient." Jermaine's gaze remained on the children, not the officer. "And I will be here," he whispered softly, mostly to himself, "because someone has to care." When the last toy was handed out, Jermaine lingered briefly, listening to the laughter, the tiny voices repeating his name, the pure joy that had nothing to do with race, authority, or intimidation. Outside, the lot waited, but inside it was only hope. As he packed up the empty box, Carmen approached. "You handled that well. He didn't get to ruin this moment for the kids." Jermaine nodded, voice quiet but firm. "It's never about him. It's about them." Returning to his car, he glanced at Thompson, still watching from the booth. There was a spark of acknowledgement in the officer's eyes, though masked by pride, a silent understanding that Jermaine Carter was not easily deterred. Driving away, Jermaine felt the weight of the day shift slightly, not gone, not even lightened, but redirected. Each delivery, each visit, each challenge was a battle in a larger fight, a systemic struggle that would not be resolved in a single confrontation. Yet victories like today mattered. They built resilience, trust, and quiet momentum. Officer Reynolds leaned against the railing of the parking lot, arms crossed, watching the comings and goings of visitors. He had seen Jermaine Carter arrive more times than he could count, always calm, always composed, always defying Officer Thompson's attempts at intimidation. Reynolds had never spoken up before. Authority wasn't questioned lightly. But something about Carter's persistence gnawed at him. The man wasn't just polite. He was deliberate, principled, unafraid. And Thompson's behavior had shifted from casual superiority to an almost obsessive vigilance. "Why does he keep coming back?" Reynolds muttered under his breath, watching Jermaine distribute toys inside. "Because he wants to make a scene," one of the newer officers suggested, shifting nervously. Reynolds shook his head. "No, he's doing something bigger, something purposeful. You can see it in how he interacts with the kids, how he talks to staff. It's genuine, not for show." Across the lot, Thompson observed the interaction like a hawk. He didn't notice Reynolds' gaze. He didn't notice how his authority, though outwardly intact, was subtly undermined each time Jermaine completed his mission unscathed. Later, in the break room, Reynolds reviewed incident reports. Thompson had documented every perceived infraction, every minor deviation from protocol. But Reynolds noticed inconsistencies, times mismatched, statements exaggerated, complaints filed without corroboration. Something about Thompson's record didn't add up. "Have you noticed this?" Reynolds asked a colleague, pointing to a file. "Look at the timestamps. The entries for Jermaine Carter, they don't match the logs. Someone is inflating events to justify their behavior." The colleague frowned. "That's not good. You think Thompson is doing this intentionally?" Reynolds hesitated. "I don't know if it's intentional, but it's persistent. It's bias. And if no one documents it, no one stops it, it becomes a standard. That's the real problem." Meanwhile, Jermaine had returned home, exhausted but resolute. The urgent case Carmen had mentioned earlier weighed on him. A young boy named Elijah needed a specific toy to keep him calm during treatment for a chronic illness. Without it, business became stressful, tense, and frightening. Jermaine reviewed his notes, planning the next delivery meticulously. He didn't yet know that Reynolds had begun quietly tracking Thompson's actions. The officer had noticed patterns of misconduct before, small, seemingly innocuous, but now they appeared targeted, personal. Every interaction with Jermaine was documented in excessive detail, yet often contradicted by witness statements or surveillance footage. Reynolds leaned back in his chair, rubbing his forehead. If someone doesn't notice this soon, it's going to escalate. Thompson isn't just enforcing rules. He's abusing them. Back at the prison, Thompson prepared for another round of checks. His pride was intact, but the tension between him and Jermaine lingered like a shadow. Every visit by Carter reminded him that authority had limits. Every smile, every thank you note, every letter from the children highlighted the contrast between bureaucratic power and moral responsibility. That afternoon, Reynolds approached Jermaine quietly while he coordinated with prison staff. "I need to tell you something," he said, glancing around cautiously. "I've seen what Thompson's been doing. He's exaggerating incidents, documenting inaccurately. I'm not sure he'll ever admit it, but you're not imagining things. He's targeting you." Jermaine paused, the words sinking in. "I thought it was just intimidation," he said softly. "I didn't realize documentation. Evidence against me." Reynolds nodded. "It's subtle, but it's there. I've been tracking it quietly. If you keep logs, witness statements, letters, it builds a picture of bias. Eventually, it can't be ignored." Jermaine felt a surge of relief mixed with renewed vigilance. "Thank you," he said. "I need all the help I can get. For the kids." Reynolds smiled faintly. "That's the point. He's trying to assert control. But you're proving that care and consistency are stronger than intimidation. Don't let him shake you." Across the prison lot, Thompson made his rounds, unaware of Reynolds' observations. He believed himself untouchable, his authority absolute. Yet the cracks were forming, silent but persistent. Every unjust action, every exaggerated report, every misuse of power left a trace. Traces that Reynolds quietly collected. Later that evening, Jermaine sat at his kitchen table. Letters from children sprawled in front of him. Elijah's urgent case in the folder beside the stack. The weight of responsibility pressed down. But for the first time, he felt the support of someone who could witness the truth. He traced the letters with care, feeling the hope, the trust, the innocence they represented. "We'll get through this," he whispered. "We'll make sure the kids know someone believes in them." And somewhere, silently, the balance of power began to shift. Not through confrontation, not through anger, but through witness. The morning news cycle was relentless, a blur of city politics, crime updates, and human interest stories. Jermaine sat at his kitchen table, laptop open, fingers hovering over the keyboard. A local reporter had contacted him, interested in covering his work delivering toys to children of prisoners. It was an opportunity, but also a risk. He glanced at the folder from the prison's social worker, detailing Elijah's urgent case. Time was critical, yet the reporter, a young woman named Hannah, asked persistent questions. "Have you encountered resistance?" she asked. "Any challenges delivering the gifts?" Jermaine exhaled slowly, choosing his words carefully. "Yes," he said, "there have been obstacles. But the mission isn't about the obstacles. It's about the children. They deserve care, consistency, and hope." Hannah leaned forward, eyes sharp. "Any particular incidents you'd be willing to share? Something that might illustrate the systemic challenges you face." Jermaine hesitated, then nodded. "There's one officer, Officer Thompson. He's questioned my right to deliver toys, delayed me, tried to intimidate me. Not out of procedure, but personal bias." Hannah's pen paused over her notebook. "Bias? You mean racism?" Jermaine swallowed. "Yes. Subtle, sometimes overt, but consistent. And it affects the children indirectly. Because every delay, every intimidation, diminishes the impact of the work." Hannah's eyes narrowed thoughtfully. "We need evidence if this is going public." Reynolds had already been collecting data quietly, and Jermaine had kept logs of interactions, copies of letters, and emails documenting every encounter. Together, the files painted a picture of systematic abuse. That afternoon, Jermaine and Hannah arranged to interview Carmen and Lisa from the prison's child services office. Both women had witnessed Thompson's behavior, albeit in hushed tones and cautious ways. Their corroboration added credibility to Germain's accounts. Later, Reynolds reviewed Thompson's incident reports once more. The discrepancies were glaring when compared to timestamps, visitor logs, and surveillance footage. Overzealous documentation, exaggerated claims, and selective omissions created a record that was clearly biased. Reynolds compiled everything in a report, carefully annotated, ready to submit to internal affairs if necessary. Meanwhile, Thompson went about his day, unaware that his actions were slowly unraveling. He monitored Germain's return visits, noted each minor interaction, unaware that every move was now observed, recorded, and verifiable. Every exaggerated complaint, every attempt at intimidation, left a trail that Reynolds and Germain could follow. By mid-afternoon, Hannah had gathered enough material to draft her article. Germain read over her notes carefully, each incident detailed, every quote cross-checked, every date and time verified. The story highlighted systemic racism, abuse of authority, and the quiet resilience of those delivering care in the face of prejudice. Germain leaned back in his chair, eyes closing briefly. Exposure wasn't revenge, it was accountability. Thompson would face scrutiny not because Germain wanted punishment, but because the truth demanded acknowledgement. Later, the newsroom buzzed as Hannah prepared the story for publication. Images of Germain delivering toys, letters from the children, and excerpts from interviews illustrated the narrative. Thompson's behavior was documented alongside the responses from Reynolds and other witnesses. The system could no longer claim ignorance. When the story went live, social media erupted. Comments poured in, supportive messages for Germain, outrage over Thompson's behavior, calls for institutional review. The children's voices were amplified indirectly through the adults who championed their care. In the prison, whispers began. Officers who had once laughed at Thompson's antics exchanged nervous glances. Internal affairs flagged reports for review. The once unquestioned authority of Thompson began to crack under scrutiny. Thompson received the alert that his conduct was under review. His face hardened, pride clashing with unease. For the first time, he felt the weight of accountability, not abstractly, but concretely. Every exaggerated report, every minor infraction he had manipulated, was now visible, undeniable. Meanwhile, Germain focused on the children. Letters still arrived daily, drawings and notes of thanks that reminded him why the exposure mattered. For them, the system was larger than Thompson. For them, the fight was ongoing. But each smile, each laugh, each small victory in the rec room was a testament to persistence and integrity. That evening, Germain reviewed Elijah's case. The boy's treatment had gone smoother after the delivery, his anxiety reduced, his smile brighter. The impact of small acts of care reinforced a lesson that change was incremental but tangible. Marcus joined him later, reviewing the news coverage together. "This is huge," she said softly. "The story, the evidence, it's undeniable. Thompson can't ignore this." Germain nodded. "It's not about him. It's about the pattern, the system. But yes, he's part of it, and accountability matters." Reynolds reached out, confirming that internal affairs would proceed with formal investigations. The timeline for action was uncertain, but the groundwork was laid. Thompson's abuse of authority, once invisible and unchecked, was now illuminated. That night, Germain reflected quietly, thinking of the children's letters, the drawings, and the smiles. Exposure wasn't only about justice for the present. It was a shield for the future. For every child who might otherwise suffer in silence, it was proof that someone would bear witness, document, and act. In a city built of gray buildings and rigid hierarchies, Germain's persistence and integrity had carved a path for change. The work was far from over, but momentum had shifted. Thompson's authority, once absolute, was now questioned, and Germain understood the balance. Courage, evidence, and witness were as powerful as any badge. By midnight, the newsroom published the final piece. Germain leaned back in his chair, hands folded, listening to the city hum outside. The battle wasn't over. Systemic inequities remained, but the first cracks had appeared. The first steps toward accountability had been taken. The prison administration office smelled faintly of disinfectant and paper, sterile, controlled, orderly. Jermaine sat across from Officer Thompson at the long conference table. A representative from Internal Affairs, Reynolds, and Carmen from Child Services were present. The atmosphere was tense, charged, almost electric with anticipation. Thompson's jaw was tight, hands clenched over the edge of the table. For once, he had no immediate authority, no uniform presence to bolster his ego. This was formal, procedural, and unyielding, a setting where words mattered, evidence mattered, accountability mattered. Officer Thompson, the Internal Affairs investigator began, voice neutral but firm. We've reviewed multiple reports concerning your conduct toward Mr. Carter. Please explain your actions on record. Thompson's eyes darted toward Jermaine, then back to the investigator. I was enforcing protocol, ensuring order in the lot. That's my duty. Reynolds interjected gently. Your reports, sir, are inconsistent with surveillance footage and visitor logs. Several incidents with Mr. Carter show escalation beyond reasonable procedure. Thompson's jaw tightened further. I was following rules. That man, he tried to provoke me. Step out of line. I did what was necessary. Jermaine spoke calmly, voice steady, carrying the weight of truth. I have documented interactions, letters, emails, and witness statements. Every time I complied with rules. Every time Officer Thompson's actions were unnecessary, intimidating, and biased. Thompson's nostrils flared. Biased? I enforce the same rules for everyone. Carmen leaned forward. With all due respect, sir, your behavior was selective. Other visitors did not experience the same scrutiny. Your actions affected children indirectly. That's not enforcing rules. It's intimidation. The investigator nodded. We've also reviewed internal complaints from other staff members noting similar behavior. This is not an isolated incident. Thompson's eyes flicked toward Jermaine. You've made me look incompetent. Publicly, internally. This is harassment. Jermaine's expression didn't waver. I'm here to protect the children. That's not harassment. That's advocacy. And your conduct threatened that mission. The issue isn't personal. It's systemic. I only continue because the children depend on it. Thompson shifted in his seat, unease creeping into his posture. The confrontation was no longer about immediate control. It was about accountability, transparency, and evidence. For the first time, he couldn't simply rely on intimidation to resolve the situation. The investigator reviewed the documentation. Timestamps, logs, letters from children, statement from staff, and surveillance footage. Officer Thompson, you'll have a chance to respond, but the evidence shows repeated misuse of authority. Can you explain these discrepancies? Thompson's voice faltered slightly. I thought I was maintaining order. That's all. I didn't intend. You intended what? Reynolds asked quietly, eyes steady. To intimidate, to assert dominance, to control an environment beyond reasonable authority. Thompson looked down at the table, silence filling the room. Jermaine's gaze remained calm, unyielding, steady. The room seemed to contract, every second magnifying the tension. Finally, the investigator leaned forward. Officer Thompson, based on these findings, there will be formal disciplinary actions. Your conduct violated institutional policy. There's evidence of bias and misuse of authority. Internal Affairs will oversee corrective measures. Thompson's face reddened. He opened his mouth, then closed it, swallowing. The words he had once wielded like weapons, authority, control, intimidation, no longer held power here. Jermaine exhaled, tension leaving his shoulders slowly. Thank you, he said quietly. This isn't about punishment. It's about ensuring children receive care without fear, and that authority is exercised responsibly. Carmen smiled softly, nodding at Jermaine. You did it. You stood firm, documented carefully, and now the system responds. Thompson's eyes flicked toward Jermaine one last time. There was defiance, yes, but also the unmistakable weight of accountability settling heavily. The uniform, the badge, the authority, none could shield him from evidence, witnesses, and principle. As the meeting concluded, Jermaine gathered his folder, letters, and remaining documentation. Each step carried purpose. Outside the office, the children's voices echoed faintly from the rec room. Their laughter a subtle, persistent reminder of what mattered most. Marcus met Jermaine outside, eyes reflecting pride and relief. You did it. You held your ground. And the truth won. Jermaine shook his head gently. It wasn't about winning. It's about integrity, and about showing the children that there are adults who will fight for them. That matters more than any single confrontation. Reynolds approached. Your documentation, your persistence, it made the difference. Thompson underestimated you. He underestimated the system's ability to hold him accountable. And more importantly, he underestimated you. Jermaine nodded. And the children, they're why I continue. Every letter, every smile, it matters. That's the true measure of success. That night, Jermaine sat at his kitchen table, reviewing the letters once more. Elijah's smile in his mind, the scribbled notes of thanks, the small artwork taped to each letter, all tangible proof of resilience, hope, and care. He glanced at the news coverage, the story highlighting systemic challenges, bias, and perseverance. Thompson's missteps had been exposed, but Jermaine knew the work wasn't done. Accountability was a process, not a single moment, and systemic change required more than one victory. Yet tonight, he allowed himself a quiet sense of accomplishment. The confrontation had ended. The children had not lost hope, and integrity had triumphed over intimidation. Somewhere across the city, the days after the internal affairs hearing were quiet, but charged with change. Jermaine returned to his routine, delivering letters and toys, coordinating with social workers, and checking on the children. Yet the air was different, less tense, more observant. Whispers of accountability rippled through the prison staff, and Thompson's shadow no longer loomed with the same absolute authority. Reynolds approached Jermaine one morning in the parking lot. You've shifted the balance, he said quietly. Staff are watching more closely now. They can't ignore what happened. Even Thompson knows that. Jermaine nodded, eyes scanning the lot. Other officers moved about their duties with a mix of wariness and curiosity. Some offered small nods of respect. Others avoided eye contact entirely. The atmosphere was subtle, but the message clear. Behavior had consequences. Inside the Child Services office, Carmen and Lisa reflected on the changes. The kids are responding differently, too, Lisa said. They sense less tension. They can focus on the toys, the letters, their own moments of joy. Carmen nodded. It's a small victory, but victories like this build trust. They see someone who fights for them, consistently, and that matters. Jermaine spent the afternoon reviewing letters from Elijah and other children. Their words were simple yet profound. Thank you for believing in me. You make me feel safe. We can smile because you care. Each one reinforced why he endured resistance, intimidation, and systemic bias. Each one was a reminder that the work was worth it. At home that evening, Jermaine shared the day's developments with Marcus. Even Thompson is quieter now, Jermaine said, not because he's changed overnight, but because he knows he's being watched. That awareness is powerful. Marcus smiled faintly, and the children see it too. They see adults who will fight for them. That shapes them in ways you can't measure yet. The next week, Jermaine returned to the prison to deliver more toys. This time, the lot felt less hostile. Officers moved efficiently, but without the tension that had shadowed every previous visit. Thompson was present, but his posture was reserved, measured. He avoided Jermaine's gaze, a subtle acknowledgement of the accountability he now faced. Jermaine distributed the toys methodically, interacting with each child individually. Their smiles and laughter echoed to the hallways, carrying a quiet affirmation that care, consistency, and courage could overcome intimidation. After the visit, Jermaine met Reynolds near the parking lot exit. The documentation, the exposure, the children's voices, it all mattered. Reynolds said, "The system is responding. That's rare. You did this." Jermaine shook his head. "We did this. Not me alone. The social workers, volunteers, witnesses, they all played a role. Accountability is collective." Later, Jermaine returned home, letters and drawings stacked neatly in his living room. He read them one by one, tracing small hand scribbles and smiles onto paper. "We're making it," he whispered softly. "Every day a little more." News coverage continued to circulate. Local outlets reported on the changes in prison protocol, the accountability measures instituted, and the attention brought to the children's welfare. Thompson faced ongoing disciplinary review and retraining. His authority remained, but it was tempered now by oversight and awareness. Jermaine and Marcus sat in quiet reflection. It wasn't easy, Marcus said. The confrontation, the exposure, seeing him challenged, it takes its toll. Jermaine nodded. It does. But the real cost is borne by the children if no one acts. That's why it's worth it. That's why we endure. As night fell, Jermaine reviewed the folder of letters one last time before sleep. Each note was a reminder. Persistence mattered, integrity mattered, and care mattered. Every act of kindness, every documented instance of advocacy. The morning sun spilled over the city, soft gold light cutting through the gray skyline. Jermaine Carter walked to the prison lot with a calm purpose, carrying a box of toys for the children once more. The lot no longer carried the same oppressive tension. Officers moved with quiet professionalism, and Thompson was notably absent from Jermaine's path. Inside the Child Services office, Carmen and Lisa were already organizing activities for the children. They're going to love this, Lisa said, arranging toys in neat stacks. Even the new ones. Some have never received anything like this. Jermaine nodded, scanning the room. The children arrived soon after, each face lighting up at the sight of familiar boxes, colorful ribbons, and the promise of small joys. He knelt down, handing out toys individually, exchanging gentle words, smiles, and encouragement. The rec room hummed with energy, laughter, and a sense of safety that hadn't existed months before. It wasn't just the toys. It was consistency, reliability, and attention. Each interaction reinforced that someone cared, that someone would fight for them even in spaces designed to strip hope. Later that day, Jermaine met Reynolds in a quiet corner of the lot. The internal affairs review is complete, Reynolds said. Thompson faces formal reprimand, retraining, and strict monitoring. He can no longer exercise unchecked authority, and the institution is implementing oversight protocols to prevent this from happening again. Jermaine's chest rose and fell slowly. It's not just about punishment, he said. It's about ensuring that children like Elijah, like all these kids, can feel safe in a system that has often overlooked them. Reynolds nodded. Exactly. And your persistence made it possible. Not confrontation, not anger, but careful documentation, witness support, and consistent advocacy. That's what forced accountability. As they spoke, Jermaine's mind drifted to the children he had yet to meet, those whose letters were still pending, those who waited for toys, encouragement, and hope. Each delivery, each act of care, was a small step in a larger mission, ensuring children of incarcerated parents had support, acknowledgement, and the sense that someone believed in them. Across the prison lot, Thompson observed from a distance. He was quieter now, more reserved. The confrontation had changed him. Not his heart, necessarily, but his behavior, his oversight, and his understanding that authority carried responsibility beyond ego. Accountability had reshaped the contours of his influence, even if grudgingly. Back at home, Jermaine sorted letters from the children. Each one was unique. A drawing of a toy truck, a heartfelt note of thanks, scribbled handwriting declaring hope, joy, and love. He read each carefully, knowing these small expressions were the tangible outcomes of months of dedication, endurance, and moral courage. Marcus joined him, handing him a cup of tea. You've changed things, he said quietly. Not just for the kids, not just for Thompson, but for the institution itself. People see that advocacy matters, that integrity matters. Jermaine smiled faintly. It's not about recognition. It's about responsibility. Every child who feels safe, every smile I witness, every letter I receive, that's accountability in action. That's the impact we're leaving behind. The news outlets continued coverage, highlighting changes in policy, improved oversight, and the story of one man who refused to let bias and intimidation dictate the welfare of children. Social media buzzed with support for Jermaine, letters shared online, and testimonials from staff and volunteers amplifying a narrative of perseverance and moral courage. Inside the rec room, Jermaine watched as Elijah carefully unwrapped a toy, his eyes lighting up with genuine delight. "Thank you, Mr. Carter," he said softly. "You always come back. You don't forget me." Jermaine knelt beside him, voice gentle. "I'll always come back. Because you and the other kids matter. Because someone has to be there. And that someone is me, for as long as I can." The words hung in the room, heavy with promise. Small victories, repeated and deliberate, became a legacy. The children were not powerless. They had advocates, mentors, and adults who chose to act in the face of injustice. Every letter, every toy, every small act of care was a brick in a foundation of trust, hope, and resilience. Later that evening, Jermaine reflected quietly, sitting alone with letters spread before him. Thompson's consequences were ongoing, but the real measure of change was visible. Children who could laugh without fear, staff who observed and supported, a system slowly bending toward accountability. Jermaine exhaled, thinking of the journey, the confrontations, the intimidation, the persistent documentation, the advocacy, and the unwavering focus on children's welfare. Each challenge had been met not with vengeance, but with integrity. Each obstacle reinforced the importance of persistence and moral courage. Marcus entered, sitting across from him. "Do you ever think about how different things might have been if you'd given up after the first confrontation?" Jermaine shook his head. "No, giving up wasn't an option. The stakes are higher than one person's comfort. It's about justice, advocacy, and hope. The work is bigger than me, bigger than anyone in this room." The phone rang, a call from Hannah, the reporter. "Jermaine," she said excitedly, "we're featuring a follow-up story. The children's feedback, the changes in policy. It's going national. People are paying attention." Jermaine smiled faintly. "It's not about the spotlight. It's about accountability and the kids. But yes, the awareness helps." Hannah's voice softened. "You've shown persistence and integrity matter. People are listening, and I think it will inspire more action." As he hung up, Jermaine looked at the letters once more. Each scribble, each drawing, each heartfelt phrase reinforced a simple truth. Small acts of courage and care ripple outward, challenging bias, inspiring others, and leaving a legacy that cannot be erased. That night, as city lights flickered against the skyline, Jermaine felt a quiet resolve settle in him. The work was ongoing, the system imperfect, and challenges remained, but the proof was tangible. Children were safer, staff were more vigilant, and authority was held accountable. Somewhere across town, Officer Thompson contemplated the consequences of his actions. Pride had been tempered, authority had been challenged, and the realization dawned that power without accountability was fleeting. Yet Jermaine's legacy, care, consistency, advocacy, remained steadfast. It